Welcome to Fun Facts Daily, your source for just the good stuff. Monday through Friday, we're bringing fun facts and news you can use, all carefully curated to uplift and inform. So give yourself a break, relax, and learn something awesome in just a few minutes every day. Hi everyone, I'm Kyle Wood, and today we're going to be learning all about Aurora Borealis, also known as the Northern Lights. But before we get into the facts, let's warm up our brains with a little challenge to see if you can tell fact from fiction. Consider this. For centuries, folktales from the Arctic have claimed that the Northern Lights don't just put on a show for your eyes, but also for your ears. Witnesses have reported hearing faint crackling, clapping, or hissing sounds when the lights are dancing overhead. Others say that couldn't possibly be true because the atmosphere where the lights occur is too thin to carry sound waves that far. What do you think? Are the Northern Lights a multi-sensory experience with sound to go along with the light show? We'll find out at the end of the episode. Now for your word of the day. Our word for today is Borealis. In this context, it's the second half of the scientific name for the Northern Lights, but the word itself is an adjective that simply means northern or pertaining to the north. When astronomers or geographers use the term boreal, they're referring to the northern regions of the globe. So when you hear Aurora Borealis, it literally means dawn of the north. The history of the word actually dates back to ancient mythology. It comes from the Greek name Boreas. In Greek mythology, Boreas was the purple-winged god of the cold north wind and the bringer of winter. He was one of the four seasonal wind gods known for his strength and volatile temper. In the 17th century, around 1619, the famous astronomer Galileo Galilei combined the name of the Roman goddess of the dawn, Aurora, with the Greek god of the north wind, Boreas, to create the poetic name we still use today. Time for your daily high five, our top 5 fun facts about the Northern Lights. Number 1. The colors of the aurora are determined by specific chemical elements colliding in the atmosphere. When we see those beautiful curtains of light, what we're actually seeing is a high-altitude demonstration of chemistry in action. The most common color, a pale yellowish green, is produced by oxygen molecules located around 60 miles above the Earth. But if the solar particles hit high-altitude oxygen about 200 miles up, the color shifts to a rare, brilliant red. And nitrogen is responsible for producing the blue or purplish red auroras. It's not just about the atoms, though. The altitude also makes a big difference. The reason altitude matters so much is due to the atmospheric density and the relaxation time of atoms. At lower altitudes, where the air is more dense, oxygen atoms frequently bump into other atoms, which changes how they release energy, typically resulting in a common green glow. In the extremely thin air at very high altitudes, oxygen atoms are left alone long enough to radiate a low-energy red light, a process that takes much longer and would be interrupted by collisions in the thicker air below. Number 2. Earth is not the only planet in our solar system that experiences auroras. If you traveled to Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, or Neptune, you would witness aurora displays that are much more grand than anything seen on Earth. Because these gas giants have powerful magnetic fields and dense atmospheres, they generate massive light shows near their poles. Jupiter's auroras are particularly intense, and unlike Earth's, which are driven by solar winds, Jupiter's can actually be powered partly by its own moon Io, which spews volcanic particles into Jupiter's magnetic field. Astronomers have observed these extraterrestrial light shows using powerful telescopes like the Hubble Space Telescope. Interestingly, the auroras on these other planets often shine in ultraviolet light, so they would basically be invisible to our eyes, but they're spectacular when viewed through the correct scientific instruments. Even Mars, which has a very weak magnetic field, has been observed to have proton auroras that cover much of the planet's day side. So I guess you might say auroras are a beautiful and truly universal phenomenon of magnetic planets. Number 3. We have records of the northern lights dating back for thousands of years. While our current understanding of the northern lights is obviously based on a lot of modern science, humans have been documenting these events for millennia. The earliest suspected document recording these is found in Chinese texts from around 2600 BCE. The text describes a strong lightning moving around the star Su, which illuminated the entire area. This ancient account suggests that people were looking up in awe at the dancing lights long before we understood the science behind them. And that's not all. Some archaeologists believe that cave paintings found in France dating back to the Cro-Magnon era, around 30,000 years ago, may depict the aurora. These drawings show squiggly lines across the sky which don't resemble stars or clouds, leading experts to theorize they may be the earliest artistic representations of the phenomena. Number 4. The Aurora Borealis happens much higher up than you might think. It's really at the edge of our atmosphere, far above where airplanes fly. When you look up at the lights, they might look like they're just above the clouds, but they're actually occurring at the edge of space. The bottom edge of an aurora display is typically at least 60 miles or 100 kilometers above the Earth's surface, while the top edge can fade out as high as 400 miles up. To put that in perspective, commercial jet airplanes cruise at about 6 to 7 miles above the ground. This extremely high altitude means that the lights are actually sharing the sky with satellites and the International Space Station. In fact, astronauts on the ISS don't look up at the auroras, they can actually look down or straight through them. From their vantage point, they see the auroras as glowing green ribbons swirling around the curvature of the Earth. And our fifth and final fun fact for today: we appear to have recently peaked in our solar maximum, which is why we've had a bit of a golden age for aurora hunters recently. The sun operates on an 11-year cycle of magnetic activity, and because we've recently reached the peak in this cycle, the northern lights have been visible much further south than we typically experience. This surge in solar flares and sunspots has turned the last couple of years into a spectacular period for sky watchers around the globe. While the activity remains high for now, we're technically looking toward the end of solar cycle 25. According to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, solar cycle 26 is expected to begin sometime between January 2029 and December of 2032. But scientists are still closely watching the current cycle's behavior, and NOAA notes that they don't yet produce a formal prediction for the specific intensity of solar cycle 26. This means that while the lights are dancing frequently right now, we should cherish these views while the current cycle is still providing such high energy displays. Now for some news you can use. If you're lucky enough to see the aurora, you might find your eyes see a faint grayish cloud, but your camera is actually able to see the bright greens and other colors. This is because the camera sensors are more sensitive to low light than the human eye. To capture a great photo and see the aurora in all their brilliance, you really need stability and time. The number one trick is to use a tripod. Even the slightest movement will blur the photo because the camera shutter needs to stay open for several seconds to gather enough light. If you don't have a tripod, rest your camera on a rock, a fence post, or the roof of your car. Next, if you're using your smartphone, be sure to turn it to night mode and set the exposure to the maximum allowable time. That might be as much as 3 or even 10 seconds. If you have a higher end, like a DSLR camera, you can use manual settings with a wide aperture, like an f of 2.8, and high ISO, like 1600 or 3200. This combination allows the camera to soak up the faint light of the aurora while keeping the stars sharp. Now for the moment you've been waiting for. At the beginning of the episode, I asked if the Aurora Borealis could actually make noise that people can hear. Well, that's a fact, but it is a very rare phenomenon. For a long time, scientists dismissed reports of aurora sounds as folklore or auditory illusions, arguing that the lights were too far away for sound to reach the ground. But in 2012, researchers at Aalto University in Finland showed that under certain weather conditions, specifically during a temperature inversion layer where warm air traps cold air near the ground, static charge can build up and discharge, creating audible claps, crackles, and muffled bangs. These sounds occur much closer to the ground than the lights themselves. The sounds are only about 230 feet up, which explains why you can hear them instantly. So, if you're looking up at the northern lights and you hear the sky crackling, you're not imagining it. Now, I hope you enjoyed learning a bit about the Aurora Borealis with me today. Be sure to tune in every weekday for even more fun facts. Fun Facts Daily is an Airwave Media podcast. It was written, recorded, mixed, and edited by me, Kyle Wood. Thanks for sharing a part of your day with me. Be sure to follow Fun Facts Daily on your favorite podcast app so you can keep the good stuff coming your way every day. And if you like the show, please do me a favor and leave a kind rating, review, or just tell your friends about it.